Good morning. I'm Kim,
Good morning, I'm Jen.
and we are back. We are your favorite occupational therapists here to talk to you today about. She's laughing at me. She's laughing at me because I put my cup up. Anyway, we're talking
Yeah.
about sensory processing disorder, specifically the visual system. Kids can have visual hypersensitivity, they can have visual hyposensitivity, or they can be sensory seekers. The kids with visual hypersensitivity are the kids that are bothered by lights and a lot of visual activity. The sunlight is too bright for them. They go outside and they squint. Fluorescent lights really bothers them in the classroom. It almost takes on a form of energy. They almost see like little shimmer from the fluorescent lights. They may get headaches. They may rub their eyes. Their moods may change. Jen, what else do you see with kids with visual hypersensitivity?
I see them have watery eyes often. I see them sneeze as soon as they hit the sunlight. And I see them sometimes have their head down. Did you already say that? But they
Mm-hmm.
have their head down because they can't necessarily look up at you.
Yeah. They also do things like you'll see them go get down on the carpet and they pick up the tiniest little speck that's on the carpet. They notice a lot of visual detail, and sometimes they get lost in that visual detail as well. Computer screens can bother them. Phone screens can bother them. Too much activity in the classroom can bother them. So some of the treatment for that is obviously sunglasses, if you can get little kids to wear them. If they're wearing regular glasses, you can ask the optometrist to put glare reduction glasses in there. There are also filtered glasses that you could ask the optometrist about to limit the blue wavelength that is bothering them. Hats with wide brims, obviously. Kids in the car, the sunlight coming through the windows can really bother them. So there's roller shades that you can put there. Decrease the visual clutter at home because it will distract them. They'll notice all of that visual detail. And they may go, especially the little kids, go from thing to thing to thing, picking them up, then they're distracted by the next visual thing. So you're not really getting good attention from them. The older kids, you can give them screen breaks. You definitely want to limit the fluorescent lights, and Jen has a good image to show us.
Yeah, I'll show you that in a hot second. I'm also thinking that when you're in a classroom situation that you can change the position that the child is in so that they're not in the back of the classroom looking at all the visual stim in front of them, that they're in the front of the classroom. I'm also, I lost my train of thought, so I'm worried about getting this up
In
here.
the classroom, where you have, while she's pulling that out, in the classroom, you've got bookshelves or you have toy shelves, and those kids notice all of that visual stimulation. So you could put a cover on them, or you could turn the bookshelves around so they don't see that.
I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Here's an example of a shade over a fluorescent light. So you can buy them commercially, or you can just put a sheet on top of the fluorescent light. This can be done in a classroom. I know in my own basement, I have a fluorescent light that can be bothersome. Another idea is a slant board. A slant board is something that we put our book on so that it is on a raised surface so that the light is not coming down on the desk and the paper that they're writing on. And I'm looking for that.
Okay.
I can't find it, but we'll go through them. So,
Well, yeah. And while she's looking for that, also when they're at home, if their rooms are messy and there's too much stuff that's on the floor, too much visual clutter, that will actually make them feel anxious. So trying to help them keep their rooms picked up would be very helpful for them as well. And oh, Jen's got a picture of the slant board there.
it doesn't have to be this one. It could even be a notebook, a 3-ring binder that you put on a slant just so that the paper is not flat on the table.
Yeah, because when the paper is flat, if the fluorescent light hits that, it's almost like the light is sort of bouncing off the paper, and those kids see that movement, and it's very, very distracting to them. And Jen was talking about putting them in the front of the classroom because the other kids in the class are sort of visual clutter to them. They're all wearing different shirts, and sometimes the shirts have lettering on them, and the kids are talking, and the faces can be really too much visual stimulation for the kids. So if you put them in the front of the class, you limit that. And also, kids that are visually hypersensitive are very bothered by faces sometimes because we have all different colors on our face, on our hair, and we have earrings, and our faces are making different expressions, and our eyes are moving, and that can be very visually overwhelming to kids. So sometimes they don't look at us, and if they're not looking at us, there's a reason for that. So I generally try not to ask them to give me eye contact, because they would if they could. So now we're going to talk about kids on the other spectrum who have visual hyposensitivity, where they don't recognize visual stimulation very often. It's just kind of ignored. Those are the kids that might walk over other kids. They might walk over things. They might bump into things. They don't notice the end of the driveway, so they're running out into the street. They don't notice the steps as they're going up or down, and they're falling down their steps, they're falling into the steps, they're falling off playgrounds because they don't notice the edges. Those kids can also be visual sensory seekers, because if they don't notice the visual input, they try and create it. And Jen's going to talk a little bit about the visual sensory seekers.
So these kids are the ones that are drawn to the flashy toys, and they sometimes will turn their head and look out of the sides of their eyes, and they'll do it often because they kind of get that movement in their eyes. Or they like spinning, perhaps because they like how what they see after they stop moving, the room is still moving. Or they sometimes use their hand by their eye to get some stim that way. Sometimes they stand very close to the TV and they love the scrolling of the credits at the end of a movie. So for these kids, we want to use that visual system and increase its intensity for them, so that they're not craving it, so that they're not constantly seeking it. So one example I have is this light up toy, and I haven't met a kid who doesn't love it. And I will use it to get their attention. I'll put it up by my eyes so that they kind of look at me while they're looking at the light, and you can see how it kind of shines on my face. They think that's kind of cool. Sometimes I will use this as like a now and then, so that let's do this puzzle and then you can have the way cool toy. So I will use it in that way. A lot of times my kids will use a bottle kind of like this. This is just a calming bottle that's got some glitter in it. So like a lava lamp or a fish tank, they'll use this and they'll stand in front of it for a very long time to get that visual stim. So giving it to them a little extra might help them crave it less.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some other ideas up here that we're going to share our screen. And let's see if we can get our ideas flowing. So the first one is this toy track. I like using these kinds of toys for those visual seekers because they really like the movement of it. They're intrigued by the movement of it. And then we can work on sharing or turn taking or the colors or counting, all those kinds of skills. A lot of times too, my visual kids will lay on their side or on their back to get a better view. I'm not sure exactly what it does for them, but they like that. Kim?
Yeah, so this is for a lot of the visual hyposensitive kids where they just don't notice things visually. So if you use some kind of placemat that's a bright color and then put something on it that's a contrasting color, so in this case it's the red and the white, they're going to notice the utensils more or the other item that you're wanting them to pick up. So contrasting colors are good for kids who have visual hyposensitivity.
This is an example for kids that are really the seekers that really like the light. So I can get some good fine motor skills, and we can work on color matching, but they're still enjoying it because they like the light. The cones, did you already talk about that?
No, we haven't talked about the cones. So I use this. A lot of my families will tell me they're so worried that they're for their child's safety because they're outside playing. They want that child to know where the edge of the driveway is. But the kids who don't notice those visual differences don't see where the edge of the driveway is. So not only do the cones act as a barrier, but the color catches their attention and they can learn that they need to stop where the cones are.
So I have another YouTube channel. Oh, and it scrolled through, unfortunately. So I have another YouTube channel. We're just going to get off of there. And one of my activities on that is a DIY I Spy bottle made with rice and common household objects. And you put it in a water bottle and they can shake it and find the objects that are in there. You can also buy it commercially. Let's see, here's your tape.
Yeah, I love using electrical tape. It's great for kids who do not notice visual stimulation and they're falling down the steps or falling up the steps. I particularly like the orange. Those are on the edges of the steps, so it becomes really obvious where the ends of the steps are. You could use those if you have a playground in your backyard and you're worried about them falling off, or again, you have steps there, you could use the tape so that you really catch their attention. If they're always walking into a door or anything like that, you could use the tape wherever you need that little extra visual cue.
Good idea. The little glow sticks, I love glow sticks. So we put them on their wrists, we put them on their hands or on their necks, sorry, so that, and other people's necks, so that they are drawn to that. And you can get some eye contact with it. We can work on color recognition, some matching. There's my slant board.
Do you have the shelves, Jen?
The what?
The visuals, the shelves, the baskets?
I'm going to say maybe I lost them.
Okay.
But I will look for them.
Okay. When for kids who have visual hypersensitivity as well, I like to put things in brightly colored baskets, because if you ask them to go to their room and find something and they have visual hypersensitivity, they may not notice it. But if you say, I want you to get the bear that's in the pink basket, that color is going to jump out at them. I want you to get the crayons that are in the blue basket, that color is going to jump out at them. So color is your friend for kids who have visual hypersensitivity.
Well, it's not cooperating, I'm sorry. And my last one are playground balls. So a lot of times you don't necessarily need this as much as I just wanted a reminder for myself to tell you that a lot of times kids who have difficulty with the visual system have difficulty with eye-hand coordination and eye-foot coordination, and ball skills are huge. So I use those at a very, very young age, 7 months, where we are rolling a ball or moving a ball and they're watching it in a brightly colored ball. Sometimes I put it inside a tunnel so that they kind of literally have tunnel vision and they can really watch that ball move back and forth. But I like working on ball skills at a very young age, because you need to have good visual attention in order to play ball. And it is a very big developmental skill, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that is so important with our kids with visual hypersensitivity, because they don't really visually track, as we call it in the visual world. They're not following things with their eyes. So you can start with those brightly colored balls and move them all over the place so that they have to follow that. You could even use the cones that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Set up some kind of little path in the driveway where they have to follow along where the cones go, because you really want to increase their visual awareness.
Yeah.
So we hope you found this information helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe, and we'd like to hear your comments.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.